Arcturian Multidimensional Leader. We wish to thank you, dear Lightworkers, for their great courage and endurance. We are coming into your consciousness to tell them this. It's now for those of you who have joined with their multidimensional self unite with each other. Members of galactic and celestial realms are working with you, our US expressions earthbound, to remind them that, it is now. To unite with Gaia and all his human and non-human inhabitants who are willing to release numerous illusions and limitations of their three-dimensional vessel. Any belief that you are limited to your 3D expression holds them in illusion. Fortunately, so you can imagine that you are multidimensional, you will begin to realize that you do not need to make a reality to experience another reality. In fact, we all have the ability to experience their realities tetra and fifth dimensional in the now of your multidimensional consciousness. By tuning in now you can do an honest assessment of your state of consciousness observing your thoughts, emotions and actions from his newfound top prospect. You choose to return to full consciousness of your multidimensional self, you need to be aware observers of his life. First you need to know before they can change you. Once you are observed clearly, you will notice any changes you need to do in your life and itself. This observation starts with you saying to yourself, "Now I'm just getting in my higher self to observe my state of consciousness. This higher perspective I can make an honest observation of my thoughts, emotions and actions. Now I'm just looking at how my thoughts and emotions are affecting my state of consciousness. I am also acknowledging the activities and/or duties that lower my consciousness. Exactly now I'm ready to flow into the fifth dimension. I choose consciously transmute any thoughts, emotions, activities or habits that lower my consciousness." For you, the volunteers who build a karam for a vase ground to watch Gaia, are fully aware of their multidimensional self. You need to be aware observers of his life. When you recover a continuous interaction with our top of the US expressions, you remember that this higher guidance is a higher expression of your own multidimensional self. Through constant communication with its US you will remember the mission did you decide to accept before you get into your Earth vessel. More importantly, when you allow your higher expressions of multidimensional self merge up and orient you, you are prepared to be a leader multidimensional others. You can start as a person, but as you merge with the many within you, you will be able to also merge with the many who are beginning to remember your mission. Then 1 becomes 2 and 2 becomes 4, which becomes 8, 16, 32, 64 and so on ad infinitum. You are awakening to your multidimensional self and the reason why you chose to enter upon three-dimensional terrain. We know the great solitude that you have suffered and deep longing for. That something or someone is missing. This something they lack is the mission that you have chosen to complete, and that someone they lack is you, as your true multidimensional self. Each of you is an important component of planetary ascension of Gaia. Each of you volunteered to assist Gaia with her ascension. As a reward for your efforts, it will become multidimensional leaders who join with Gaia as she transmutes your physical reality in the world of multidimensional light and unconditional love. On August 25, 2014 the Arcturians continue the multidimensional leadership. Thought multidimensional. Our dear on the rise, we, the Arcturians, we realize that many of you are struggling with the three-dimensional memory. We realize that the constant stress of an ever-changing world may interfere with your memory, but all you had more stress in the past without your current short-term memory loss. Probably you have noticed that you usually forget 3D details about times or dates. What is the multidimensional thinking? It may seem to many of you, on the rise, there is an ever-increasing amount of information about your everyday life that seems out of your daily thought. You are experiencing this challenge because you are in the process of loading all your thinking 3- and 4-dimensional in its multidimensional thinking. What is multidimensional thinking? You ask. Multidimensional thinking is the ability to be aware of more than one version of your multidimensional self while you are in the process of your daily physical life. For example, you may be sitting at your desk while paying your bills, think about what they would like to buy in the market, remember that your child must meet certain commitment at a certain time, your lawn needs to be watered and, oh yeah, you forgot to call his friend. All these different thoughts come in and out of your mind so quickly that they seem to almost be a single thought. With multidimensional thinking, Your thoughts are not just limited to his physical life. You may be taking a walk, thinking about the previous night's dream and watching the clouds in the sky and wondering if one of them is a ship disguised. His mind then remembers the dream when you were in a huge hall with many unknown people listening to something even more unusual being said. Then, an oncoming car brakes loud and you jump back to your physical reality. Because you are used to high braking as a warning, you return to your physical perceptions and totally forget the fleeting moment of their multidimensional memories. Warning physical sounds are very common. Even when children are quiet too, you know to be fulfilled. So whenever you have a warning tone or a silent warning, your attention lets your multidimensional thinking so that you can pay attention to your physical world. This moment of multidimensional thinking is often forgotten because some level of fear came into his consciousness. Once your awareness down to only the physical world, his brief encounter with the multidimensional thinking is lost. Fortunately, once you include a possible message from your higher self, which occurred in his morning meditation, or his desire to remember something that you cannot put their fingers, you gradually accelerate your brain in the higher brain waves, your multidimensional thinking. In this way, you are in and out of multidimensional thinking. When you are quiet and peaceful, your consciousness expands to higher brain waves. Then your multidimensional thinking comes together and you begin to consider their higher worlds. Suddenly a three-dimensional warning goes into your thinking as watching the clock to see that you need to meet some physical activity, and consciousness falls back on the lower brain of your 3D life. Make your regular multidimensional thinking a great return of the component to its fully multidimensional consciousness has become as normal the multidimensional thinking as your 3D thinking. For example, if you routinely observe the sky in search of a spaceship, write down your dreams when you wake up and or hear the inner guidance of its dimensionally higher, multidimensional thinking becomes as common as its three-dimensional thinking. As your ears are tuned to hear your children call, the request from your boss, or the sound of birds, their ears are tuned to what you determined how important messages from higher dimensions. Unfortunately, their three-dimensional brain and consciousness have a limitation to how much information can be consciously recognized. As you deal with your three-dimensional responsibilities, you are calibrated to first receiving physical information and then leave their dimensionally higher thought for a later time. Interestingly, it is only when you leave as long as your consciousness expands into its fifth-dimensional consciousness. Once your consciousness expands to that frequency, you can read the files that you stored in its multidimensional mind invisible. As you can only read your internet when they are online with your computer, you can only read your multidimensional mind when they are online with its multidimensional thinking. Once you are connected to your multidimensional self, can you remember what your inner voice told them? You may also remember the almost invisible light waves that quickly passed through the corner of your eye, or important dream really was an alternate reality. If you read the newspaper every morning, you gauge their perceptions and thought to 3D. On the other hand, if you meditate every morning, write down your dreams, or imagine that your higher us is close to you, you calibrate your thinking and perceptions to the fourth dimension and above. Of course, you do not need to read the newspaper every day to follow the news, or you have to meditate every day to track their us. But the habits you establish in your life determine what is normal and what is exceptional. So if you only think about what is occurring in your physical life is abnormal thinking about your inner self. On the other hand, as soon as you begin to pay attention to their inner feelings, fleeting perceptions and inner messages of its multidimensional world, the higher dimensions become normal. In other words, normal is what you have in your mind on a regular basis. And, in what you think, you get. So if you think about what they read in the newspaper, on the tasks that you have for the day, which bills must be paid and what your family or work requires you to do, you have limited yourself only to three-dimensional thinking. Because you are using a wasteland and live in a three-dimensional reality, three-dimensional thinking is needed. On the other hand, when you also ponder their four-dimensional dreams and creative endeavors, listen to your inner guidance and remember to connect with your higher expressions of the us while continuing with their daily life, you are thinking multidimensionally. States of consciousness. The multidimensional thinking is not limited to hear or read words because it is a form of light language. The language of light is transmitted and understood by emotions, imagination, tactile sensations, sounds and colors that suddenly come into your consciousness. By paying attention to these light messaging, expand your three-dimensional thinking to multi-dimensional thinking. It is important to be aware that your conscious mind dictates your state of consciousness. Your state of consciousness dictates your conscious awareness. Perceptions of what you consciously pay attention to dictate his vision of life. Likewise, your emotions affect your state of consciousness. If you feel the bad mood, you see what's wrong with your life and low awareness for three-dimensional thinking. When you feel the good mood, you see what's right in your life and your consciousness expands to multidimensional thinking. A bad mood normally is because the fear invaded his thoughts. Because of this lower frequency of thought, you mostly pay attention to areas of I should and I have to of its three-dimensional life. A good mood normally is because his conscience was able to focus on love, especially unconditional love. So their thinking is calibrated to a higher state of consciousness in which you may remember to pay attention to their innate connection to your multidimensional self. Brain waves. Your brain waves determine your state of consciousness. Your state of consciousness determines your thinking. Your thinking determines the frequency of their perceptions. Your multidimensional self is in constant connection to all your brainwave states of consciousness, in the now of the one. However, your physical self can become limited to only one state of consciousness in a time. His beta brainwaves are aligned with the perceptions of their state of consciousness, thinking, three-dimensional perceptions. Their alpha brainwaves are aligned with your state's four-dimensional consciousness, his creative thinking and perceptions of its superior three-dimensional and four-dimensional life. Their theta brainwaves are aligned with their four-dimensional states of consciousness, upper and lower fifth-dimensional, spiritual and shamanic thought, and the beginning of conscious perception and recognition of its multi-dimensional expressions of the US. Your brain waves delta are aligned with the awareness of their US light body and fifth-dimensional thoughts and also multidimensional perceptions that resonate so now. Their brain waves are like your mental muscles. The more you activate them, the stronger they become. If you do not use them, they get weaker. In other words, when you consciously attune to a higher brain wave and the resulting state of consciousness, a portal between the physical brain and your multidimensional mind opens. Whenever you travel through this portal between its multidimensional mind and physical brain, the portal/neural pathway becomes increasingly active. This activation is as activation of new neural pathways that are created when you learn a new task. Whenever you engage in this task, or state of consciousness, neural pathway, portal, expands a small dirt road for a broad street to become a highway. So the more you consciously activate a higher state of consciousness, the more you integrate these brainwaves in your daily life. Conversely, when you choose not to tune into your higher brain waves, it is more difficult to integrate these higher states of consciousness in your daily life. So you think, perceive and live in the physical world with little awareness of their US innate multidimensional brainwaves, and different states of consciousness also determine what you emotionally feel about your life as well as you emotionally interact, react and/or respond to your daily life. Beta brainwaves and states of consciousness are a call to duty and often result in stress, anxiety and depression. Alpha brainwaves and states of consciousness are felt as a creative, fun and more cheerful. Theta brainwaves and states of consciousness are felt as deeply reflective and spiritual. Delta brainwaves and states of consciousness are very transcendent. Then it is very difficult to access them while they are awake to your physical world. As your brain waves and states of consciousness resulting affect your emotions affect your brain waves/states of consciousness. The fear immediately lower your consciousness to brain waves beta of their tasks, duties, dangers and three-dimensionally immediate responsibilities. Happiness lift your consciousness into the fourth dimension where your creativity is activated. Joy expands your awareness to your fifth-dimensional desire to merge with your multidimensional self. Unconditional love is the ticket to your interdimensional travel. The delivery, which is the release of all reactive emotions, connects with the many expressions of your multidimensional self. It is through the feeling of joy, unconditional love and commitment that you begin to experience your multidimensional self in your daily life. Gradually you will hear the constant care that its US offers around the now moment. At the end you will know they are being told. When you allow this guidance in your daily life, it becomes increasingly aware and you become aware that you are never alone. So you know they are always oriented, educated, comforted and protected. You are aware that you can make a call for assistance in any area of your life. However, as you need to connect your phone or computer to get information, you need to connect your higher consciousness to receive messages dimensionally higher. It is important to document these messages in some way. It can be difficult to remember them when you return to your 3D consciousness. With practice you will learn/remember how to channel their top hosts through writing or through his own voice. By the action of channeling your higher self, your perspective changes from being lost in the three-dimensional illusions and lies to float above the cares of everyday life while they are with their superior expression of the you. So the we that resonates at a higher frequency can comfort and guide the you that is using an earthen vessel during these challenging times of personal and planetary ascension. Your higher self will help them to remember that, first you ascend your consciousness, then ascend your thoughts and emotions. This allows you to ascend their ideas and actions, which will lead to more insights and multidimensional experiences that will reveal your personal body of light and planetarium. We know that many of you were greatly disappointed by the Earth did not become the fifth dimensional suddenly during many times of the predicted time. However, the rise is not associated with time. The rise is the action of leave time. Also, if the planet suddenly ascended to the fifth dimension in any of the dates humanly designed, the physical planet would become uninhabitable immediately for all three-dimensional forms and the vast majority of Gaia's inhabitants would be destroyed. Gaia is the loving Mother Earth. Rather than pull the rug out from under in many of his wonderful life forms that have been living on, in and above its planetary body, she decided to continue with the suffering that she faces every day in the hands of dark members of humanity. So when you get impatient and ask, when we finally ascend? We, the higher expressions of your own multidimensional self, we answer, what have you done today by planetary ascension? We have seen that those who remember who volunteer to take on an earthly body and watch dear Gaia with his ascension not ask, when will it happen? Instead, they ask, what I can do to help. It is this question that makes them a multidimensional leader.